Well, hello my beautiful friends and welcome to Tailor Made Beauty by Kris. Today I wanted to give you an update on my palette purge project. First of all, I have to confess that I had 4 palettes that didn't make it into the purge video. One was in the house and I just forgot about it. 2 were on their way to me because I had already ordered them and they were in shipping. And 1, I have to confess, I purchased afterwards. You know I didn't need to do that. Okay, so the one that I couldn't find in the house was Smashbox Ablaze. And I think this was actually one of the very first palettes I picked up when I started really getting into makeup a couple years ago. And I still really like this palette. Warm colors just work really well on me and it's pretty, so this one went in the love it pile. Another one was Lime Crime's Venus. This I picked up at Ulta's 21 Days of Beauty. I have done a video on this, doing a look with these lovely colors, so that definitely went in the keep pile. Another one that was being shipped to me was the Marc Jacobs Fantasine palette. And these are, of course, can I say really pretty a few more times? But this is a little more pinky and light and neutral than many of the palettes that I have. And it's got really good color payout, so I like that one. And then the one that I purchased after that whole project, like really, how could I, after going through now what we know is more than 50 palettes of eyeshadow, what on God's green earth did I need one more for? But there was a Marc Jacobs palette that was on my list for the Sephora sale. This is the Scandalust palette. And I did not pick it up. I showed restraint and did not buy it during the VIB Sephora sale. And then I went on Poshmark. Poshmark, on the one hand, is a really great place to find things and find good deals. On the other hand, it can be a slippery slope. But somebody had this Scandalust that was barely used, as you can see. I mean, I've used it a couple of times and it looks practically brand new. And I got this on Poshmark for $25. It retails at Sephora for $49.50. So basically half price on Poshmark. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Okay, let's go through what the palettes that had one more chance to prove themselves. And at the time, I think I said there were 13. There were actually 14, I believe. So, in no particular order, the Tarte Leave Your Mark. All of these palettes I used at least one day. The color payout from this palette on my skin was just wasn't enough. It was very, very pale, washed me out. And so I think either you would need to have a much lighter complexion or a much darker complexion to make that one work. So that one's going away. The Sigma Warm Neutrals Volume 2 palette. Also, didn't love it. I know it says that they're warm neutrals, but honestly, when I used it, they really read with cool undertones on my skin. And I didn't like the look, so that's going away. Another palette that I think is great, it just doesn't work on my skin, is Colorpop Fame. Just, I wasn't really willing to put in all the work to figure out the 1 or 2 looks I could get out of this palette. And I think I've got other palettes that I can get similar things from. So that's going away. The Viseart Mini Pro Palette 2. Yeah, pretty colors. What I decided was really probably all I would use are the shimmers. And these shimmers end up being a whole lot like the Tarte Sizzle palette. And I love that palette. And I don't love this palette, so bye-bye. Tarte Be Your Own Tertius. This was a eyeshadow and blush palette. Same thing, just colors didn't really do anything for me, so that's going away. Sephora, the Sunbleached Filter, same thing, way too light, except for the two incredibly dark colors, and yeah, just not for my coloring. Max Nordy Girl, this one was hard for me, but like I said, I took this to Italy, used it for 2 weeks, and now when it's just back with all the other palettes, I just don't love it. So that's going away. Something that's easy to get rid of, the Sephora Pro Nudes. I used this palette for 3 days, and I could do lots of, I used this row and did neutrals. I did this row and did sort of a smoky ombre look. I used the darker mattes over here. My biggest problem with this palette, besides it being too big and just too unwieldy for me, one, there's a ton of kick up in the pan, and two, there's a ton of fallout. And I just don't need that. If this was my only palette or only few palettes that I had, fine, but Sephora needs to do better. Purge. Actually, I didn't even use this palette. I didn't even attempt a look. There just wasn't anything there that I wanted to use. I think some of the colors look pretty. I think this aesthetic could be interesting. I think balance could be interesting. One, I have similar colors in other palettes, and two, I don't want to reach for this big palette for only 2 colors. Bye-bye. This one was hard. ABH's Norvina. I used it so many days. Oop, can you see? Sorry about that. See all the fallout in the pan? This is just a messy palette. It's got some beautiful colors, but the kick up and the fallout, nope. Bye-bye. Don't need the hassle in my life. Oh, this was another one that didn't make my video. This was, Almay came out with a bunch of these 4-color, similarly colored palettes. I did an ombre look with this that I'll link. And, well, I like the colors. I just don't need that palette hanging around. There's one, so those are all going. There's one that I'm still on the fence about. It's the Tarte Clay Play Volume 2. Angie Hot and Flashy had a great tip, which was to use the bronzer here as a crease color. And that really gave some extra life to this palette. So I'm not ready to get rid of it. Maybe it gets a couple more chances. The Milani, the Earthly Elements palette. I used this one again and I was so happy. I remember how beautiful these colors are and how easy they are to work with. So that was definitely a keeper. And then the LORAC Pro 4. This was the one that I drove to all kinds of Ultas all over the place. And yes, this one gets a reprieve. This is the one kind of cool palette that I really like on my skin, and that Begonia, that's the one you can tell I have used a bunch, is so pretty. I mean, I like other colors in here, but it is almost worth it to keep this palette just for Begonia. So that is my status update on my palette purge. As I've been looking at the rest of my makeup, I think I need to do the same thing with blushes, which I think that's harder to do because I'm not good at swatching blushes and knowing how they read on my face. So that might be a much longer project than the palette purge was. And the other thing I've been doing, in addition to using one palette for the week, is during that same week I am using one foundation. So today I happen to be wearing the L'Oreal, oh, I knew I should have brought it here. The Infallible Almost 24-Hour Wear, the one that comes in the glass bottle. That is such a great foundation. How about you? Did my palette purge inspire you to do any of your own makeup purging? If it did, I'd love to hear in the comments below. If you like this video, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up. If you've subscribed, thank you so much. It really does mean the world to me. If you haven't, would you please consider subscribing? I post every Monday and Thursday. Thank you so much for joining me and have a really fantastic day.